Hello and welcome to the Chili Dog Strings podcast. I'm Neil Gilfillan.
And I'm Rachel Sampson. Thank you for joining us as we open up new conversations in the world of music education.
What's going on, everybody? Today, we are so excited to announce that we have our first guest. So here we go. We have Bryan Wilson. He's a cellist, a teacher who is familiar with many different styles on the cello. He's here to talk about his new album coming out on March 7th. Bryan, thanks for coming on today.
Yo, Neil, thank you very much for having me, man. I appreciate you having me on the show.
Absolutely. Excited to have you. First of all, before we get into the album, is there anything else about yourself or your background that you'd like to share?
Please don't search me on the internet. No, I'm just kidding.
Please do.
No, I'm just kidding. You please do. I need the money. I'm just kidding. It's a joke, guys. No, I'm a cellist, composer. I wrote the book Cello Chords. And I also teach. I teach students all about the cello, but mostly I teach them about life.
Yeah.
That's what I like to.
Yeah, I dig that.
Yeah. It's not so much about the cello. It's about how to make convincing faces when you're playing. Like, that's really half of the battles. If you can look like you're really into the music, then even if you sound bad, people are going to be like, well, you know what? He's so into it. I guess I just don't know what I'm talking about.
Expression. Being expressive.
Yeah,
right?
There you go.
Yeah.
That's what I teach kids.
Yeah, I like that. I also like that you brought up Cello Chords. That's a great book, by the way. I don't think I had a chance to talk to you about it, but I think that's something that's really helpful for anybody who's composing or thinking about different kinds of voice leading on cello. It's a really great resource. So anybody listening, check that out, the Cello Chords book. It's really great.
Thank you, man. Yeah, I wrote that many years ago back in college. I don't know, did you read the beginning of it?
Oh, yeah. I love your story of writing it. That stuff's not easy. It's not easy to put that kind of stuff together, I can imagine.
It's boring. It was boring. I'm going to keep it real. But someone had to do it, and that was me.
Yeah.
There you go. No, I'm glad you find it useful, because sometimes I think about it, and I'm like, was the purpose of this book? It's not even interesting. It's like just a boring dictionary. But then I go back, and I look through it, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like, I don't even think about that, because I don't know all the chords in there. Like, I don't know them off the top of my head, but it is a good resource now that I look back on it.
Yeah, really helpful stuff. So moving from the cello chords and going to the album, first of all, can you tell everyone listening the name of the album and where that name came from? I'm going to let you say it first.
Okay. The name is Oso Perezoso, which is... what's your background? What's your ethnicity?
Well, I'm pretty mixed. My mom is Chinese and Dominican.
Wow, Chinese and Dominican. That is a great, interesting combo.
Yeah. Dad is Scottish and German. That's the Gilfillan. But
Wow, that is a crazy mix.
It's a pretty crazy mix.
So do you speak any Spanish?
I do. I speak some Spanish, not perfectly, but just enough that when I was looking at it, wasn't exactly sure what the best pronunciation was. Oso perezoso or
it's
oso perezoso.
Hola, yo hablo español. I'm sure there's a bunch of that you live in Texas, right? Like, I mean, there's actually like real people, Mexicans that speak Spanish, and then there's like white people that are like, yo hablo español.
So
Juan?
For our Spanish speaking listeners of all types, there you have it. All the many ways you can pronounce the album.
Yeah, no, it's Oso Perezoso, which is it means literally lazy bear, which is what they call sloths in Spanish. And I've always kind of envisioned myself as a sloth. I'm a slow, hairy, just kind of guy who loves to eat and sleep. I mean, I happen to play the cello. I don't know if many sloths in the wild play the cello, but I imagine some of them do. So yeah, I was down in Colombia visiting a friend, and we happened to go to the zoo, and everything is like an oso there, like something bear, like, you know, talk about the anteater is like a something oso, blah blah blah. And then I saw that they had oso perezoso, and that was how they said sloth, lazy bear, and I was like, yo, this is perfect. This is me. This is exactly what I would call myself. So yeah, there you go, lazy bear. That's that.
Kind of going back a little bit, I wanted to ask you, when's the last time that you did a solo project like this? I know you've done a lot of things with the group You Bred Raptors. This is really cool stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But about your solo playing, how long has it been since you've done something like this and recorded it?
This is actually my debut album. I've never released a like an actual album. I've been recording stuff for the past, ever since I started writing music, probably when I was like 16 or so, but like, and I would put stuff on SoundCloud or Bandcamp over the years, but I never actually did a real release. So this is my first actual album that I'm saying, like, this is my resume, this is my calling card. Please pay me, please. That solo angle really caught my interest, because when I first discovered you, I remember I was just looking up cello stuff and hip-hop cello stuff on YouTube to see what there was, maybe like 5 years ago. And I loved seeing the stuff that you were putting out, really creative cello playing, and it was on your stuff that was on your own, but funny too, really fun stuff. I really dug that. Yeah, that was my favorite. I mean, I still, there's a part of me that still wants to do that, but I have to tone it down since I'm a teacher now. But yeah, I love making funny videos. Like, that's honest, because I used to do stand-up comedy with my cello. So I used to like bring the cello on stage and sing dirty songs and, just like make jokes and stuff. And I love that. But I ultimately realized, like, I don't have the drive to take what it takes to really be a stand-up. So, but that, my first love has always been comedy music. Like, Weird Al he was the first concert I ever went to. Like, I love Weird Al. I love funny stuff. That's always been my goal. So I'm sure somewhere down the line I'm actually going to release a comedy album, but that's not this one. It's a lot different than the comedy stuff of yours that I saw before. So when I listened to the album, it really hit me how there are a lot of different types of moods, types of different sounds. Is it fair to say that since those days of doing those solo YouTube funny videos, that some things have changed about your playing? I don't know if they've changed that much, honestly. I'm still pretty much the same guy. But I don't know. The album itself is composed of like two different types of things. Either it's cello and electronics, and when I say electronics, it's really just, software synths and drum beats and kind of stuff like that. Because I'm really not the most technically advanced guy at all. Like, you should see me try to set up just an amplifier. Not good. Really unacceptably bad. But I've somehow managed over the years to figure out how to do what I wanted to do on the computer with the cello, because it's kind of like it's a sound that I hadn't really, it's not the way I would describe it is it's almost like a pop song with cello as the lead voice, but it's not really like a pop sound. It's more like a dark, brooding hip hop kind of thing. But yeah, that took a long time to try to first understand how to even make it sound remotely not horrible. You know what I'm saying? Like, because I still don't know what I'm doing when I'm recording, but somehow I've been able to figure it out. It's cool.
And I think you do a really good job of switching from the real like introspective acoustic tracks, Lil Min, Roz, and then switching it up with stuff like Rager. I love that really like gritty electronic thing that you have going on. Do you mind
Yeah, I love
actually
that
if I
stuff.
play a little bit of that for everyone listening?
Yeah, of course. Drop it in. That one's kind of like, I love Rat-a-tat. You listen to Rat-a-tat?
Yeah, they're cool.
Yeah, like that kind of thing. I love those portamento synths, that kind of the slidey synths, almost like the. I bet you love this too, like early. You like R&B, like early '90s R&B, that kind of stuff. I'm more of like a gangster rap, like early '90s, that kind of high synth that you would hear in like whatever,
Like some.
What's that?
Oh, I
Ice
was thinking
Cubes.
some like old Dr. Dre beats is what I'm thinking when I hear those high synth. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like Dr. Dre. Yeah, exactly. That high whine. I love that thing. I used to, almost just use that exclusively. But I love those kinds of sounds, and mixing it with the cello was kind of my thing. The Rager was kind of just like more of like a fun, just like, four on the floor, kick snare, just basic drum beat, but, a loud, kind of in your face, crunchy synths. What's hard though is trying to balance that. For a long time, because I really don't know exactly what I'm doing when I'm mixing. Like, it was hard to get the cello to stand out in the mix when you have these synthesizers which are way louder and occupying so much more of the sonic space than the cello. Like everything would just mask the cello, so I had to kind of learn how to
Yeah, get that
make
balance.
it cut through a little bit more.
It's funny. I like that you brought up
Yeah.
that old school rap stuff because there was one. I think it was at the beginning in Beater. There are some times in some of the vibe that it kind of reminded me a little bit of like a throwback to some of that like old school like West Coast kind of beats. I was thinking about that a little bit when you're doing it. I can see that influence for sure.
Yeah. No, I absolutely love that stuff. Yeah. Dr. Dre, off the Chronic, like they're so good.
Great album.
It's unbelievably good. Yeah. And I grew up listening to like Eminem too. Like I loved that kind of production, and so yeah, it's just the really kind of hard hitting beats, like big kicks, hard hitting snares, those kind of things. And then of course the hi hats. So yeah, I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah, it was even really cool seeing some of the art of storytelling, like at the end of the album when you were doing Buiti at Men.
Yeah, that one's for my
it was-
wife.
It's fun. Yeah, it's fun hearing you spitting bars. Spitting bars for the non hip hop listeners out there. Spitting bars is rapping. And listen to some of the rap, which some of which may or may not be for children in there.
It's mostly for children. I see her riding the motorbike, and I'm like, damn, fam, I thought I was a man. I need her help crossing the street, holding my hand. I'm just a little boy in the streets of Hanoi, trying not to annoy this fine girl saying, oi. I just thought it'd be hilarious if I just had this like song full of like kind of introspective cello pieces, and then just the last one is just this ridiculous rap. Like, I don't know, I just never saw anyone do that before, so I just thought it'd be funny to put it on there. Why not?
Yes, it's a good way to end the album. So for the other tracks, where do you get the ideas for writing that kind of stuff? I noticed a lot of the songs had people's names on them for the titles.
I wrote a lot of these songs for, like it was my dad's like 65th birthday, my mom's 60th birthday, something like that. My grandma, Roz, she's hilarious. That was for her 95th birthday.
Wow.
She's hilarious. I love that woman. I wrote one for my wife. One in the Chamber was kind of an elegy. Is that how you say it? Elegy?
Elegy, yeah.
Elegy. Wow. That I'm not smart. It was from my composition teacher, Art Jarvinen, who passed away while I was still in college, actually. Which was, he actually committed suicide. So that's why it's called One in the Chamber. It's dark. I mean, I wrote that when it was kind of like an homage to him, and I was just kind of trying to process, that emotion. That's why it's like, it's very sad. Very sad. I don't know. It's hard for me to talk seriously about music, but yes.
Yeah, that's powerful stuff. Wow, that's really running the whole spectrum of from happy memories and happy family stuff to dark stuff like that.
Which I would say most of the stuff that I do is generally influenced by something dark. Like that's just kind of how I've always. I don't know if you view cello playing like this, and I don't know if kids want to hear this, but I always connect with the darker side of like. That's why I like the cello, because it has that range of like that low, deep resonance of like you can get low with it. You know what I'm saying? It connects with the darkness inside your soul, but at the same time expands upon the incredible light that it can bring. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. Did you ever feel like that?
I totally get that, man. I relate to that. I think a lot of people would. I think you expressed that beautifully. That's real.
Yeah, it's violins too, like, no offense to, everyone who's listening, but it's a little too high for me. It's a little too, got to be in the forefront. Cello's got that deepness, that sadness, that grounding. It grounds you, puts you on the ground, makes you think about life, what you're doing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Sorry. All the kids listening to this like, what is he talking about?
No, and all the little cellists are like, yeah,
I get it. I'm sad too. Just kidding, kids.
Tell me about actually making these tracks. What does the process look like when you're, whether you're doing something acoustically or whether you're doing it with Logic? When you're composing, what does that look like?
It varies, like you said. So if it's a solo cello song, I have my cello, in my hands, and then I'm writing as I'm playing. So I'm like half improvising, trying to come up with the next part, and then, writing it down in Sibelius, because I have the worst memory ever, man. Unbelievable. It's so sad. I still need music to read, but that's one thing, kids. Learn to memorize, because I cannot do it. It is sad.
It's a skill. There we go. It's a skill for sure.
It is a skill. I didn't do it enough as a kid. Now I'm not good at it.
But you said improvising is no problem when you're playing it.
Oh, I can improvise. No problem. But like I almost like sheet music is like a safety blanket for me. It's like I have my little satin blanket. I cloak myself with, so I don't feel nervous I don't get really that nervous on stage, but like it just like gives me like this thing like, all right, I can just look at the music. All right, I know what to play, rather than like trying to rely on my memory, because it's horrible. Anyway, that's besides the point. So yeah, either I'm writing with the cello, or I'm doing half and half. I don't remember how some of these started, but generally sometimes I'll just start with a synth or something. You start with like a little synth loop or something like that. Generally it starts in like, a loop, something like, either probably I don't start with drums, but I start with like a synth or some sort of cello phrase and then build it around there. And then once you got one phrase, the hard part is now making it into not just a looped song, one boring thing over and over, because I can get into the habit of doing that, but I feel like the harder part for me has always been like making it into a form, making it into a cohesive song rather than just like one loop section over and over. So yeah, I'm working on the computer. I'm testing out different synths, which can be fun, but also an incredible time waste because you realize you always think you need more synthesizers and more sounds, and then what you end up doing, and this is a trap that a lot of people get into, is you just cycle through, oh, I don't like that sound, let's go to the next one. Nah, not that one, this one. Let's go to the next one. And then like 3 hours later, it's like you haven't done anything. You've just cycled through 1,000 different sounds, and you haven't found one that you liked, and like you haven't really produced anything. So occasionally I'll happen upon a sound where I'm like, oh, okay, this is awesome. All right, I'm going to work with this and then try to build something around that and not work with too many different sounds at the same time. Or at least otherwise, I just feel like it just becomes overwhelming because when you're working on the computer, it's endless. Like there's endless sounds, there's endless tweaks that you can do to it, and you'll end up just never get anything done. Not to say like you shouldn't spend time on something, but in the creative process, like you want to try to at least not just waste time searching for sounds.
Sounds like you're
day.
trying to minimize some of those distractions when you're writing it.
Yeah. I mean, have you had experience with that? Like you're just like, you can go through a synthesizer and then it's like you just go through 1,000 sounds trying to find the perfect one and you don't find it. Or occasionally you do, but yeah. So, yeah, essentially writing is either I'm at the computer, and then I'll go over to the cello and try to write something, record a little rough track, do a little loop, go back to the computer, add something. Yeah, that's generally pretty much the process. And it takes me a while. It's not like I'm getting these songs done in like a day because I'm just constantly, again, form is important to me because I always felt like I struggled with that. So if what did you notice what the form of these songs are?
Well,
most at least the hip hop.
I mean,
ones.
I noticed that a lot of them had a pretty clear like hook that it would go back to, kind of in that pop, in that kind of form, yeah.
And that's what I modeled it after. It's just it's a straight pop song. Verse, chorus, verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, out, And I mean, it's a simple form, but there's something to be said for it because it does work. Like, I mean, if I'm going to do another album, something like that, I want to try to expand upon that for sure and, not make it so kind of square. But if you listen to every pop song, think about how many pop songs, the majority are just like that, right? There's just verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, So there's a lot of variety that you can get just using that kind of structure. And the same thing with like the other songs that I wrote for cello. I mean, I start off with an idea, I try to build upon it, do some sort of development, and then I come back to the idea, and then game over. I'm out. It's like my songs are not that long. Like it's just, I'm trying to make it as cohesive as possible. Otherwise, I don't know what I'm doing.
No, it's good. Good to help use that to get the message across.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about something you mentioned before about the backing tracks, so that people can play along. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah. So, a lot of these I hadn't even intended on playing live. Like a lot of them I just kind of viewed as studio tracks. Like I do them in the studio and they live, on the computer or whatever. But then I realized, like, you know what? I can perform these live. All I'll do is, because, a lot of them have much more than just one cello part.
Right.
And I'm not hiring multiple cellists because I don't have the money for that. So what I did is I just went back in and I was like, okay, I can perform this live. I'm just going to take out the main melody. And usually there's one main melody. So I took that out, and then when I perform in live, I'm just playing that main melody part. So what I also wanted to do for this album, because some of my like kind of cello heroes and mentors had, they released their own, like the sheet music for their music, like Eric Friedlander. He's a great dude. He's always been really good to me. He releases his music. Sometimes he'll put the sheet music out. And I thought that was a cool idea. So I was like, you know what? I can do the same thing. I already have all the tracks there. I already have it all written out because I have a terrible memory. And what I would do, what I'm going to be doing is selling not only the sheet music, but the backing tracks. So if you buy whatever, One in the Chamber or Ice Nine or something like that, not only do you get the sheet music to play the main melody, but you can perform it too. You can do like a music -1 thing, where I don't even know if people know what that is, but essentially it's like
Can you talk about that a little bit? With
music
people who don't know?
-1. Yeah, music -1 is, my grandfather is a sax player, so he does this all the time. He's got like he has more books than Hal Leonard. Like he's got like the whole collection of like, essentially it's a lead sheet, and then they have the backing track with like drums, bass, piano, that kind of thing. It's usually jazz arrangements, but you're playing the melody, so and the melody's missing from the track. So I'm essentially doing the same thing. You put on the backing track, and it has everything except for the main melody. That's what you're playing. And I just thought it'd be kind of cool, like, if kids were interested in. Because, the truth is, most of these are not that hard. Like some of the more hip-hop ones. Some of the other ones are a little bit more difficult. But, like, there's plenty of beginning and intermediate cellists that could play these songs and might have fun performing them, and it might just give them an idea as to, the possibility of what you can do. Because, when I was growing up, I always just felt like the classical world was like kind of constricting, and, like it's very singular in terms of thought. So, it would have been nice to, I did have things I could explore, but like, I just wanted to kind of show kids that, yeah, there's more than just playing one style of music, and there's more than one way of going about it, You can play the hip-hop thing with a backing track, or you can use like you do, you got turntables or a looper or all those kinds of things, just to kind of get them thinking of like, oh, maybe I can write my own thing, like more so than just like having people play my music, which is cool, but like more like trying to inspire them to do their own writing.
I love that. That's great.
Yeah.
So, like, on that note, just your opinion, what do you think are the things that students have the most to gain by experimenting with different styles and learning how to groove and all that creative playing?
Oh, what do they have to gain?
Yeah.
You got everything to gain. That's almost hard to put into words. It's like, if you have any desire to go beyond the scope of what, the cello was originally designed for, which was the music of the time, which was awesome and still is awesome. I love classical music, but if you have any desire to explore other things, then you gotta explore. You gotta try to, hold down a groove or something like that. Try to learn how to chop. Try to do learning chords and doing bass lines and all this stuff, because you realize like the stuff that as like a classical player is like such a small percentage. Even if you know so much, it's like a small percentage of what music actually is in real life, right? Because there's so many different types of music. There's so many different ways of going and creating it. So just by being able to listen and to compose your own stuff and to improvise and not be intimidated by being kind of in a different setting than you're used to, there's so much to gain. Like it just opens up your mind as to what's possible and what you like. Because I'm droning on and on, but like for me, when I was interested in doing stuff that was beyond classical, I thought the only really other thing that you could do that was improvisation based was jazz. You know, so I tried to study jazz. And, you know, the truth is I don't really like jazz. I think it's a good tool to learn how to improvise and learn how to, you know, play over chord progressions and stuff like that and understand theory. But to be honest, it never really touched my soul. Like, I never felt connected to it when I was listening to it or playing it. So, you know, just learning, but being exposed to that let me see that there was other kind of methods of thinking about music, right? So taking the elements from that I could use, and then taking the elements from classical music that I could use, and then taking the elements from, like, the music that I listened to when I grew up, which was, like, you know, probably more like hip-hop, rap kind of stuff, taking those elements and trying to fuse them all together somehow into something that I hadn't heard before. Like, that was kind of my, I don't know, goal, but I don't know if it was goal, but I just ended up doing it. You know what I'm saying? That was a terrible answer. I'm sorry.
No, that's a great answer. And I think that a lot of people, teachers especially, can really appreciate what you're saying about trying to get students to to feel their music personally, like to have a personal connection with it. And I get excited when I see teachers doing that. I mean, it can be any style of music. I see some teachers who are really good at taking classical pieces with their students and finding, whether it's imagery or whatever, having them really find a connection so that when they're really playing with heart, it's not just dynamics that's doing it. You can tell that it really means something to them.
Yeah.
And now it seems that there's this sort of this new wave of more and more educators incorporating electronic things, whether they're using like electric strings or amps. And a lot of them are trying to figure out what to do with this. I think a lot of people realize it's important, but people are trying to figure out what direction this is all headed. And I think that backing tracks it's possible that they're really undervalued right now, because it's obviously something that can really help kids play, or not even kids, just anybody, just get used to those skills of grooving, playing creatively, independently, improvising a little bit, without totally getting like thrown into the deep end of the pool of having to start from scratch.
Yeah. I mean, I think backing tracks are good. I mean, at a certain point, they can become limiting because it's not a real person, you know, it's already set. But backing tracks could be good if it's, you know, something like you can improvise with. Absolutely. I try to have students like begin improvising, at least just like doing it like modally, just inside like one key, you know, and just saying, all right, here's the notes in the key. And not even introducing a rhythm yet, just straight like a drone, just like play a low E and we'll play an E minor or something, because that like takes away the element of like, oh, am I off beat? Am I whatever? You just have to focus on getting the notes, you know, and exploring some melodies inside that key and understanding the harmony inside that. And then once they become more comfortable with that, adding in like a drum beat or something like that. So now you're still in the same key. You're still just chilling in that one key. You're not moving to another key, one chord. But now you have a rhythm. Now you have some sort of drum or whatever keeping the time, so you have to sort of reconcile with that. Play a groove or play whatever. You can play with the time or you can play against the time. And then slowly I try to introduce them to more like, you know, improvising over chord progressions. And once I show them that, like, you know, most pop songs or whatever, it's all in the same key, so you could pretty much just play in one key, even though the chords are different. Like, it's not that complicated. Just breaking it down for people, even if they don't have a big like theory background, I think it's totally doable, you know? All right, good talk.
Yeah. No, good talk. I'm just taking a minute to just sort of reflect on that. It's really cool hearing you break down the process of how you start off with it, because it sounds like you're about getting them to sort of explore those sounds rather than getting really fancy and doing a bunch of fancy techniques or really having to get deep into the theory. It sounds like you have a really approachable way to get students from the start thinking creatively like that.
I mean, it is and it isn't. I definitely think that if you really want to be a successful improviser, you got to know your theory. It's so crucial, especially with composing too. Like it helps immensely to just kind of know where you're at. But yeah, I try to break it down into the simplest elements. Like, if I want someone to accompany me on a lead sheet or whatever, the lead sheet has the chords, and the chords, like, let's say I want them to play a bass line or whatever. Let's just make it the most simple bass line ever. If the chord is G, you're going to play G. If the chord is D, you're going to play D, and then they can accompany me while I'm playing the melody, and then we'll switch off or something. And then we get a little bit more complicated, and I'll say, like, all right, now we're going to do the ones and fives. And kids don't know what that means. What is a 1 and 5? Well, every note, like, the chord, it's just across the string, right? So if your first finger's on the D, then your first finger will be on the A, right? On the A on the G string. So now that's your fifth. So you can go D, A, D, A, D, A, G, D, G, D, that kind of thing. And, without really knowing the theory behind it, they get it. They pretty much get it. Mm-hmm. And they're able to do it. So, yeah, they don't know the relationships between the chords or whatever, but they're able to kind of play a rough, a bass line or something like that.
And one more question on that I just thought of. When you're starting that out, do you find yourself gravitating at the very beginning to any kind of styles when you're working with beginners on this? Like, do you notice that it tends to sort of start a little more?
That's a good question. No, I don't even really know how to answer that, because most of the time I'm just keeping it pretty simple, like I was saying, just like almost like a droney improv at the beginning.
Cool.
So just playing that one note and then having them play in that. And then, it kind of depends. If you throw on a drum beat that sounds more whatever, reggae or something like that, then it kind of can morph into that thing. And another good thing that I think students should do, and it's so easy for now because most of them have GarageBand or whatever, if they're interested, is like just create loops for yourself. Like create a loop, a 2-bar loop in A minor, A minor to C major or something, 2 bars, and repeat it 8,000 times and just play with that. And be surprised, like you can come up with a lot of really cool stuff with minimal harmonic material. I mean, that's what pop songs are. It's not crazy. It's not difficult stuff. It's the same stuff over and over. And playing with loops, I think really it's one, it's easy to do. There's a million drum loops you can just throw in from GarageBand. And 2, it's just like good for exploring, improvising,
Right on. Project, there's always ups and downs. Sometimes it can take a while to get some things rolling. Is there anything in particular that really motivates you as a cellist to get things done?
I tend to work pretty well when it comes to like a project for some reason, because I have a goal. Like, so I'm able to like compartmentalize, like, okay, now I need to, like same thing when I was doing the book. It's like, all right, today I have to do the formatting for the book, or now I have to do the C chords or something like that. So I think the way my brain works, I'm able to do that. I I find it a lot harder the opposite way when you don't have a project to work on, and it's just like amorphous, like now it's time to compose, or like now it's time to practice. And sometimes you're like, especially when you're, like, I don't know, for me it's like sometimes I'm like, well, what do I practice? Like, what? I don't know what to practice. Like, there's so many things I could play. Should I write instead of practicing? Should I try to compose? I find it much easier when you have a goal, when you have it, when I know that I have to release this album, when I know I have to, finish this book. For me, all the steps kind of fall in place. I find it, like I was saying, harder the other way when you don't know, when it's all up in the air. And you could write a book, you could make an album, you could, make a new YouTube video. That for me is more difficult. I think at the end of the day, though, you got to just, I guess, find the process that works for you. Everyone kind of has their own process, but as long as you're interested in what you're doing and you kind of believe in it and are passionate about it, you'll be able to follow through with it. The worst part is when, like, you're working on something you're not passionate about, and you're just like, what am I even doing this for? I don't care. That's the worst feeling. It's like no sense of nervousness, no sense of fear. Like, there should be a little bit of fear inside you. Not a little, not fear, but like a nervous energy or something. So
or excitement or something.
Excitement,
like
right?
Yeah.
Again, it's finding what motivates you and what makes you passionate, and then trying to follow that, because it's not going to be the same for everybody. Everyone has a different thing that makes them motivated. So
yeah, no, that's so true. It's so much easier to feel motivated when you really are interested and passionate about what you're doing. That makes all
without
the
that, I am the classic example of this is pretty much all I can do, man. I mean, I'm a good writer, but like, you should see me try to work other jobs. It's not pretty, because it just shows right on my face of how much I don't care. Of when I'm teaching students, like, I actually care. I love playing cello. I want them to learn. I want them to experience, to feel music like I feel music. But like, I used to work at Trader Joe's, and you should see me try to like ring up someone's, try to talk to them about their nochi or something. Oh, do you like this nochi? I don't care. I didn't care what their nochi tastes like. It's just, you see it on my face. Like, I don't care.
Wait. Are you really telling me you weren't passionate about their pre-made pizza dough? Because that stuff, I made some great pizzas with that.
I'm not hating on Trader Joe's. I think they make great products. I'm just hating on working there. That's what I'm hating on.
Gotcha.
So,
no, I get you.
So, yeah, like, when you're passionate about something, it shows. And for me, when I'm not passionate about something, to my detriment, it definitely shows. So, yeah. Follow your heart, which is such stupid advice, but kind of true. I don't know how many kids I've dissuaded by talking.
No, I don't think anyone's turned in their cellos or violins.
No, definitely don't turn in your cello.
Yeah,
don't do that.
Cool. Well, I'm about out of questions. Those were the main things I wanted to ask you, and I loved your responses. I love the detail. I love your story.
Yeah,
I love hearing about the passion in your teaching and how you tie in all this creative playing into all of that. But is there anything else that you want to touch on while I got you here today?
I would say check my album out. I really am proud of it. I think that if you're a music educator, you might find it cool. Like, your students might find it cool, because it is a little bit off the beaten path, but it's not so far off that you're like, oh, I can't get behind this. It's a cool blend of stuff. So, and again, if you're a young string player or an old string player or whatever, I think you will enjoy it. And like I was saying before, if you're looking for, your passion or whatever, you kind of gotta just go. There's no set path. That's the thing. It's like, the thing with playing cello is like, or a string instrument is like, at the beginning, there's kind of like a set path, and like your teacher will tell you like what to do, right? And you're going to play these pieces and you can do it this way. And then after a certain point, things open up where it's like, you know how to play your instrument. I know how to play the cello. I'm not going to be the best that it ever was, but I'm pretty good. But now it's about making that cello or somehow making it your own voice, which is a little bit more daunting because it's like there's no guidebook for that. Just like there's no guidebook for life. You know, it's like you got to somehow you crawl to the next thing and figure it out based on, I don't know, your intuition or whatever. But you got to just follow that because that's the only thing, you know, if you're passionate about it, you got to do it. That's my the more you should know. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for that public service announcement. That was that was great. Everybody check it out. The album Oso Perezoso, out on March 7th. Check out that album. Check out the backing tracks. And if you haven't checked out Cello Chords, you really should. Isn't there a sneak preview on your website for the Cello Chords?
Yeah, if you go to my website, bryanwilsoncello.com, and that's Bryan with a W. Wow, Bryan with a Y. Yeah, Bryan. Yeah, it's Bryan with a Y. And yeah, you can check out a couple of pages of the book just to see what it's like. You might find that useful. A lot of people have. And yeah, I got the sheet music. It's going to be up there, the backing tracks. You can buy the album.
Where can they find the album?
You can find it everywhere, man. It's going to be out, you know, on iTunes, Bandcamp. If you want to buy it directly from me, go to the Bandcamp. Go to bryanwilson.bandcamp.com. Or you can buy it on my website or go to iTunes or Amazon, whatever. It's all over the place. You know what I'm saying? It's one of those digital releases. If you desperately want a hard copy, I actually do have some of those too. I have some CDs because I had to print some for my grandma because she doesn't know how to download stuff. She's not going to figure that out.
Gotcha.
She hates the iPad.
CDs are good too.
Check out my website, bryanwilsoncello.com. You can follow me at Bryan W. Cello on Twitter. Yeah, if you got any questions or whatever, you want to talk, let me know. I teach lessons via Skype too, so you could be anywhere in the world, and I will teach you about life. That's what's important.
Excellent. Well, thanks again, Bryan. I've been a fan of yours for some time now, so it's really great to actually just have this conversation. I had a great time hearing your story and hearing about the making of this album, hearing about your creative process, and I look forward to following you more and seeing where this goes.
Thank you very much, Neil. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Bryan.
All right, man.
And that wraps up today's episode. I'd like to thank Bryan one more time for coming on and talking, but also for letting us use his music for the intro and outro. And if you want to see more, check us out at chilidogstrings.com. You can also stay up to date with our most recent discussions at Chili Dog Strings on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Thanks again for listening, and we hope to catch you all on the next one.